Hey welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Away podcast. I am your host, Tim Strange, along with
Carrie Strange.
This week, we got you another awesome one. We have Robbie Azevedo, formerly of Pacific Coast Customs. This is a pretty interesting story because we all face burnout and the long hours in the hot rod world. And Robbie had cars at SEMA, a bunch of magazines, all kinds of stuff, and competing for the AMBR. Got burned out, left the industry for quite a while, worked in the HVAC business, and now he's back. So pretty good story here. We talk about all the cool stuff that he has done.
I wonder if he's going to bring back his frosted tips.
I don't know. Carrie's looking at these pictures of him being, he looks 12 there, but I think he's 19 or 20 in that picture there. So.
All right, well, let's get started.
Here we go. Robbie Azevedo. Okay, here we go with another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I am Tim Strange. Sitting beside me is
Carrie Strange.
And we have our good buddy Robbie Azevedo, formerly of Pacific Coast Customs. You can see that on his hat right there. He had cars in many magazines. Even as a very young builder, he was on his track to superstardom, or he was already at superstardom. He had cars in the DuPont booth at SEMA. How old were you when you got the car in the booth at SEMA?
Well, my wife reminds me that I was incorrect on that post, and I had turned 21 before that. So that was SEMA in 05.
Okay, so
just
21 years old, he was building stuff awesome enough to be a feature vehicle at the SEMA show in the DuPont booth. He's even built a car and competed for America's Most Beautiful Roadster. He was originally from Napa, California. So this is the part, he's built a lot of crazy stuff and cool stuff, but he had started a young family, got a little burned out, left the industry. That's why I think not only all the cool stuff that Robbie's done, this is a pretty good, the first person that's got the burnout and left the industry. But now, thankfully for all of us, this talented guy is back in the hot rod industry, as you can see behind him. And welcome, Robbie Azevedo.
Thank you, guys.
So how'd you, let's go back. I know some of your story, but let's put this out here for everybody. It was Napa, right? Or Napa area, California.
No, it was in Napa, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people like to claim Napa Valley and live outside, but we were actually in Napa. So the shop was just outside, but in fact, you'd been there before. So the property that the wrecking yard was on was actually in Napa. And then my building was pretty much the first business in American Canyon. Well, the wrecking yard building was, and then my building. So
cool. So let's back up a little bit. Did your dad always have the wrecking yard from you being born, being a little kid?
So my grandfather on my mother's side started the wrecking yard, which the day this goes live will be my mom's birthday. So happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday.
Her dad started the wrecking yard in 1957.
Did your mom have any good kids?
Yeah, she's got 2. So she lucked out with one other one. So
okay, that's good. Same with my family. Yeah, my sister's pretty awesome.
She stopped with me, so didn't want to go any further.
Yeah.
So my grandpa
that's what I said too. Yeah, we're both the youngest, and it's like they got to a certain point. They had the first ones, and they realized they really screwed up. Then they had us, and they got perfection, so they stopped.
Or it was just getting
okay, that's the way you look at it. All right. I thought they had me, so they stopped.
Yeah, that's what my sister tells me. They kept screwing it up like a copy of a copy, like we talked about. Her and Zane calling me number 4? Number 3 from that movie that they the clone and they copied themselves. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. So
my grandpa was not into cars though at all. He liked money, and he did a wrecking yard to make money. And then my dad came around in the 70s. Met my mom. He started working there. Now, my dad likes cars. He doesn't
He
care
don't
as
like
much
money.
about money.
Yeah, he doesn't like money.
So he had his own row of old cars at the wrecking yard, and cars would come in, and he'd want to save them. My grandpa would want to, part them out, crush them, get rid of them. My dad would want to save some, so there was kind of a little bit there. But my brother and I grew up there at the wrecking yard pretty much our whole childhood into teenage years. After when I was in high school and I could drive, I'd drive out there and work after school, go out there to work for as long as I can remember, pretty much.
So I have this mental picture of little Robbie crawling around all the cars as a little grommet, looking like remember that movie? It's a Mel Gibson movie.
I'm horrible with movies.
His early movie, not. Why am I blank on this? The movie where he flips the supercharger on, after the bomb and they're trying to get gasoline and everything. Road Warrior. You ever seen Road Warrior?
I don't know that I have. No.
But there's this little dirty kid that growls at people and crawls out of a hole. I just picture little Robbie crawling out from underneath a car and growling at customers, being greased from head to toe.
I think my dad tried to keep us pretty much occupied with something where we didn't bother people, pretty much, or
Yeah.
We weren't allowed
or we
around.
bothered people that didn't mind being bothered probably so much. I mean, when I was in high school and I could drive, I'd be like the delivery driver after school. I'd go out there and get parts and go deliver them, and
It was a pretty big. I was there once years ago. It was a pretty good sized yard, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it was really big. The yard itself was like 12 acres, maybe a little over 12 acres. It was big for that area.
Yeah. And is that yard still there, or is it gone?
It's pick and pull now.
Okay.
So-
Your family still run it, or they sell that?
So no, pick and pull's like a corporate company owned by Schnitzer Steel. I think they changed the name now, but
Okay.
so my family still owns the property, and then pick and
Okay.
pull is the property.
Cool.
So the late '90s killed that business. Actually, early 2000s. The internet killed that business pretty much. I mean, before that, you had the old like intercom on the wall, and if you're looking for parts, you had all the network of people that were doing things the right way, and then internet, Craigslist, and all that stuff came around, and you could go buy a car and park it out in your driveway and push it out in the street when you were done, and have the cops come get it. So it's hard to compete with those guys doing that kind of stuff. When you're trying to do everything legally.
Yeah. Where we were from, we didn't push the cars out.
The cops would just leave them.
You
They
just
wouldn't-
let them there.
We were farmers. We put them out in the cattle pasture, just for them to scratch on. So
Scratch and post.
yeah, I do miss the old school yards, going out and wandering around and picking up stuff off there. And
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I
we're
mean,
getting old.
my back door opened out to the wrecking yard. So if you needed an armrest or a handle, or exhaust hangers, I mean, I'd go kind of walk down some rows and pick up stuff. I mean, it was extremely useful doing that.
So every night when
you
your
don't
dad
realize
was,
you don't have it anymore.
every night when your dad was closing up the yard, did he come into your shop and come in and say, "What do you owe me for today?" Did he trust you, or was that just you had the run of the yard, or how'd that work?
Everything was inventoried so well, they'd know if stuff was missing later on. So I'd have to either buy it or delete it from their computer, pretty much, one or the other. So at least it knew. All that little stuff they never really kept inventoried. So there was probably some months I failed in paying the rent too. But my dad would come over frequently. My dad was great he would walk in the middle of the day, and he'd walk whatever you're doing, and he'd look at it, and then he'd look at you, and he'd be like, "What are you doing it like that for?" And you'd be like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Well, that doesn't look very good. Why are you doing it like that?" And then he'd turn around and walk off. And then I'd look at it and be like, "Dang it, he's right. Like, why am I doing it like that?" And every time, pretty much, he was spot on. Like, why are you doing it that way? So he was really good for that.
That's what
My dad's good.
Tim's dad always had the whatever he would borrow from his dad, he would get for Christmas.
Yeah.
So if Tim went down and borrowed stuff out of his dad's shop, then at Christmas time, that's what he would get, so his dad could get his stuff back.
Yeah, one time my battery charger blew up, so I kept borrowing his battery charger and purposely not taking it. But I lived a quarter mile away, And then he'd come down on his ATV and was like, "Where's my dang battery charger?" Well, guess what Tim gets for Christmas? He gets a battery charger. Yeah, it worked.
He figured
So
that
then
out.
your dad gets the new one, or you get the new one?
No, he would give me the new
Basically,
one.
your dad's buying his own.
He never figured that out, did he?
Wasn't
He
that
never-
smart?
Yeah.
Poor Dan.
So as young Robbie around the junkyard, how old were you when you got your first car, and what was it?
Oh shoot. Okay, so I had a lot of first cars. So I still have it, but it's none of the cars that I drive. Actually, it's debatable whether my dad has it or I have it. It's in my dad's garage. So it's a '64 Chevelle 2-door wagon. My dad bought it from a repair shop. I think it maybe had like a blown up transmission or something. I don't remember for sure. I was 12, 13 years old, and it was a 4-speed car. So I would drive the car around the wrecking yard. I think we put like a new 4-speed in it, and it was a stick. So I'd drive up and down the roads, and my grandpa would ride with me sometimes, and we'd just up and down the gravel roads around, and the car came in with some American 5-spokes. So we had the great idea. I was like, I'm going to put those on the wagon. But I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't have the right lug nuts. Maybe the car that came in didn't have the right lug nuts. So we'd be cruising along, and the left rear wheel would just fall off. Car, come to a halt. I look over at my grandpa, and he'd look at me and be like, well, you better go get a jack, I guess. And he'd kind of just sit there as I go out and go get a jack and come back, put the tire back on, and then we'd continue driving around. So, I mean, that's where we learned to drive stick or, whatever we had at the time. So the wagon, we had that media blasted, and then it went to a body shop that, I don't remember if we were doing trade work for it or whatever it was. The body shop guy, his brother was going to work on it, and he didn't work on it very much. So it sat there for a long time. And then my dad said one day, must have been almost 15, probably 14-ish or so. And he goes, I don't think your wagon's going to be done by the time you can drive. So he says, I found this Nova at the tow lot, though. So we got this Nova now. So I got a 67 Nova that I still drive. Well, water pump went out a few months ago, so I haven't been driving it lately. But up to this, I have been driving it. So I got a little Nova, took it to like a Miracle Auto Body, kind of like a Mako kind of place. And they just put like a quick paint job on it, back to the color it was. A friend of ours did upholstery in a little barn out behind his house. So he put full tweed interior in it, 3 tones of tweed that's still in it, and it's spotless. I mean, it's nice. I can't bring myself to even redo it just because of how nice it is. And then so that's pretty much what I drove. But when the day I got my license, I was driving a 70 Chevy C10 short bed fleet side 4-wheel drive. So I had one of those for a little bit. And then my mom, I can't remember. I think when we got it, somebody had pieced the cab together. It was wrecked in the front, but it had already been wrecked, and somebody like welded a cab onto it. So the passenger door leaked really bad. And my mom wanted to go downtown one day, and it was raining. And by the time she gets there, she's drenched, and she's like, what are you driving this stupid truck for? And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. So she's like, well, we can get rid of this thing. We'll find you something else to drive instead of this thing. So that was one of the few cars that actually got sold. Pretty much most cars I have, I end up keeping forever. But so I don't know. First car technically was my wagon, and then probably the Nova. But then there was a C10 in there for 6 months or so in between also.
Yeah, the 2-door wagon, I seen a picture on your Instagram from going back through looking for pictures, and those are rare cars. I've had a 64, I built a 65, but yeah, the non-wagon, but the 2-doors, each year, 64 and 5, they made like less than 3,500 of the 2-doors each year.
Yeah. I think the 5 is more rare than the 4. I'd rather have the 5 front end than the 4 front end, but...
I think they only made like 3,100 or 2,900 or something of the 65 2-door wagons. So they're actually more rare than like a Tri-5 Nomad.
Yeah. But the only bad part is they still only sit 6, so that's my whole family. I need like a 9-passenger wagon, not a 6-passenger wagon.
I thought you had like 12 kids.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it feels like. I think there's 12 personalities, but there's only 4 kids.
Oh.
We don't have any kids, and there's 12 personalities sitting beside me. Oh.
Yeah, remember the 2-hand thing?
Mhm.
She never listens. I didn't think she was listening.
I can't do it now because allegedly people will see it.
If the screen goes black and you hear me scream, send some help, Robbie. So, okay, did you always... you probably didn't... Like some of these people we talked to, it was like, oh, I bagged groceries at the grocery store. So you probably just worked at the yard until you opened your own shop, didn't you?
So I did work at a grocery store. I didn't bag groceries, though.
Everybody has.
I worked in the produce department for a buddy of mine. His family owned a smaller grocery store in town. And I don't know.
Speaking of that, do you eat bananas for the shape or the taste?
Taste, I guess. They're supposed to be good for my bones, right? Joints.
Huh?
I don't know. It's supposed to be good for my joints or something.
It is, but some people like it just for the shape of it. Never mind.
Tim.
I'm supposed to be behaving myself. So you probably went and got a job someplace else, because I grew up on the farm, worked my butt off. My dad never paid me. So that was probably it. You wanted to go someplace where somebody was actually going to give you a check at the end of the week.
No, we get paid. I think I got fired from the wrecking yard. So I think I had to go get a job somewhere else for a little bit.
So allegedly, what did you do to get fired from the family junkyard?
I don't know. I think I got fired a couple of times, actually, but that was the first time. And then I worked at a stereo shop for a little bit, too, for a guy. He was actually a sound engineer, and then he decided to open up a little stereo shop. So I learned a little bit about stereos and stuff like that from him. And then I wanted to do cars and stuff, but it's hard to... There's no place around, really. I mean, Brizio was an hour and a half away or so with traffic.
About what year? What year are we talking now?
So I graduated in 2002. I was actually
what a baby!
Yeah.
What a baby!
And I was actually a smart one. I graduated 14th in my class, and there was more than 15 people.
I was going to say, how big was your class?
Because, we both went to schools where there was barely over 30 kids in the graduating class, so if you were 14th, it's like, I'm solid middle pack, yeah.
At 38.
I think ours was almost 400, so total. So, but I didn't really, college wasn't, I don't know, I didn't really like school very much, so college wasn't really the thing.
What did you think you were going to do when you started going to college?
I didn't go to college, so.
He didn't.
Oh, you didn't go at all? Well, I thought he said he started it.
No, it wasn't his thing.
No. Well, I kind of did. I went to one day, but that was it. So I don't even count that as starting.
And in that one day, what was your hopes and dreams that you were going to be when you graduated from college?
I think in the one day I sat there and the kid behind me was like, "Hey, what's the answer to that?" And I was like, "This is just high school all over again. I'm just gonna go find something else to do." So then, I remember going. So since I was the delivery driver, there's a big body shop down the street from Zane's shop. And I remember where Zane was because I used to do Hot Rod Week religiously every year. That's my favorite thing that Good Guys had going for a while. And so I actually went by Zane's shop while I was out delivering parts to try to get a job, but they were out at Autorama or something setting up. So that didn't work out.
We're talking about Zane. We mentioned Zane Cullen quite a few times of Katati Speed because so far he is still turning down our invitation to be on the podcast.
He's going to be on
here. I don't know if that would have worked out because that's even a 45-minute drive easy back then, maybe even an hour with traffic. So I probably would have gotten tired of that too. So, but I did try to go there.
Just so you know, Zane's not going to listen to this. Allegedly, our buddy Sparky that now works for Holly, he worked there in high school.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Do you know what he still has Zane in his phone as?
No.
Hitler.
I had actually a really good friend of mine that painted my blue Roadster and some other cars for me. He worked for Zane for a number of years, and he just got.
Oh yeah, who's that?
Kyle Martin.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Zane is a wonderful person.
He is. We're gonna get him. We're going to get him on here eventually.
Such a great boss, as long as he's not mine.
Well, it's a tough business, I don't.
Yeah.
Try to deal with people is the whole. That's why it's nice down here. I don't have any people to deal with. Employees,
Don't get ahead of
customers.
yourself.
So before, we gotta go back still.
So you're gonna love this part in between that a lot of people don't know about. So that year, and I guess it must have been 03 now, going into 03. So I did the stereo shop, I did the produce department, trying to find something to do. So then at Hot Rod Week, I meet a girl and her dad builds hot rods in Colorado. So he offers me a job to come out to Colorado and build hot rods with him at his shop. So I packed up and I moved to Colorado.
How old are you now?
18, 19.
Oh, okay.
19. Yeah, I was 19. So I moved to Colorado in September-ish, September, maybe late August, September. Worked there for about 2 months or so. And then one day he comes to me and he says, if the sky turns purple, you have to take a mattress and throw it on your truck. And I was like, what? And he says, well, when the sky turns purple, there's going to be a huge hailstorm, and the hail's going to like bust your windows and dent your truck up. So you got to like find a mattress and throw the mattress on it.
Does it not hail in California?
No.
Really? Huh. Everywhere
Yeah.
we've lived, it's the hail. Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't know that. I've learned something today from you.
Even here in Utah, we haven't seen hail yet. So so I go, all right, I'm going to pack up and go back home because I'm not going to deal with purple, trying to throw a mattress on my...
You glassed over a part. So were you dating his daughter too?
Allegedly.
Oh, he's learning.
So I came back, and my dad had always wanted to build. My dad likes 48 Chevy trucks. It's what he learned to drive on. His grandfather had a ranch, and his grandfather used to set the throttle on the thing to put it in granny low, pull the throttle a little bit. His grandpa would hop in the back and push hay out to all the cows, and my dad would steer the truck. So it's what he learned to drive on. So he likes those trucks. He built an extended cab one out of his grandpa's original truck in the actually all through the 90s pretty much. He was building one of those. So he'd always wanted a Blazer, like a K5, top comes off, top goes on, something like GM would have made. So he said if I build him the Blazer, he'll pay for all the parts, get parts in the wrecking yard, whatever. He'll pay to have it painted, and then I can use that to get work. And then he has this building at the wrecking yard that wasn't being used anymore. It was an RV repair shop for a while, and then that one went out of, I don't know what, I think the guy retired maybe or something. So it was just kind of empty. So he says, you can use that building, build my car and use that, get work in between and stuff. So I started that in November of 03, just after coming back from Colorado. So then I was 19 years old still when I did that. So he had a panel truck. I think the Blazer he got is like nothing that he really wanted in the end. That's probably why I have it here now, because he never drove it anywhere, never did anything with it. And finally he said, come get it, because he's tired of charging the batteries. And so now I've showed him where if you drive it every couple of weeks, you don't have to charge the batteries. You don't put them on tenders. You don't have to do any of that stuff. If you start it and drive it like every 2 weeks, you're good. And it's been fine. So that's kind of where I started. That's where my own shop started.
Awesome.
And what was after that? What was the next big project?
So, that what did well. I spent like every minute I had of my time pretty much. I was 19. I was still living at home. I'd go home for dinner, and then I'd go back to the shop and work on the car. That whole car got done start to finish in 2 years. So we started it in November of 03, and it went to SEMA in November of 05 in the Hot Use booth. And I did everything on it. When it was in the magazine in bare metal. What's that?
That's the orange and cream one.
Orange and cream one, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess I forgot it had a top. we took it to SEMA. It didn't have a top on it.
It never had a
Yeah.
top on it. No, my dad didn't get
okay.
that part. He didn't get that part.
Yeah. So
That was
basically,
part of the party he
your
wanted that he
dad
never got.
wanted a Blazer, and he basically let you create this thing, and that's why he didn't drive it. I don't know if you figured this out yet, because you didn't give him what he wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, it
So was that
happened.
the year at SEMA that we had tacos together? Remember that? Was that year?
I don't
I don't
remember, but
think
Gary
so.
You
remembers
were there.
tacos.
We were
Wait,
at Chipotle.
you went to dinner without me with Robbie?
Yeah. No, back then, and like the very beginning of going to SEMA, I actually hung out around the car the whole time. Like I wanted to be there. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to do all that stuff. And then after about the third or fourth SEMA car, I wanted to drop it off and then never to be seen again until it came time to pick it
Well,
up.
this would have been setup day. This would have been a Monday because he was doing new products. And I
Yeah,
had gone
no,
to
I
the outlet mall. Remember that?
think so. I think that's the year we had Chris's Denali.
Oh, yeah, I
You'll
think you're right.
remember-
I think you're
You
right.
remember Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Carrie
Yeah.
remembers Chris.
probably. Yeah, good looking,
Yeah.
muscular guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
super nice guy, great guy. But,
It's all
So
coming
that's-
back now.
let's go back to
Because
that first.
So the SEMA,
But
the car was
okay, I got to ask a personal question there. You're with Jamie now at this point, right?
Yeah, so I met her in May of 04. So she was with me pretty much the whole time building up the shop.
So if nobody knows, we'll post some pictures. A lot of my hot rod guys will agree on this. Robbie married way out of his hitting range. A lot of us hot rod guys remarried way up because I think these girls thought we had money because we had hot rods. Well, then they realized we had hot rods and we had no money because we had hot rods, right?
Well, hey, I got her on the cover of a magazine, though, and she wasn't even
Yep.
18 years old yet.
That's
Right.
that's one of my pictures that I shared. Oh wait, she wasn't 18. I better delete that out of my phone now.
No, wait, we signed a waiver for it, actually.
Yeah.
So so back then, it was hard. I mean, I was only 19, 20 years old, going, starting up the shop and all this stuff. So nobody would really, give you the time of day for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'd hang out to try to get customers. I'd hang out with the Danville Dukes. They were a big part of that Hot Rod Week, so I knew all of them through that. And they'd meet up every Saturday morning down in Danville for breakfast. But it was like 7 a.m. So I had to leave Napa at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning to go get breakfast because they'd be out of there by like 8 or 8:30. I mean, they
Okay,
eat.
so I'm going to interrupt you real quick. So everybody, like Southern California hot rod scene is huge, right? But going up there and staying, I've helped Zane Cullen quite a few times. The Northern California hot rod scene is just as good, if not better, than the Southern California. I know some guys are going to cuss at me. But the Danville Dukes, that was Bill Burnham that wrote for the magazines. Gary Metters from Good Guys was part of all them. Like some NorCal legends. And like you say, the Hot Rod Week, they went to Dick Long's and they did all these places up there. The NorCal hot rod scene is ridiculous. So you're lucky to grow up in the middle of all
The
this.
Danville Dukes would even get your custom guys, Richard Zokie'd come, Bone,
Yeah.
Mode Boom would be there. A lot of those guys would show up. But no, Danville Dukes were big. And then I got on the guest list for Al Ingalls Joker's Car Club for their dinners that they'd have once a month. So that was actually kind of a bummer just to tell the lady when she called that I don't do this anymore, so just take me off your list because I know how bad some people tried to get on that list. So
Yeah,
they
you
could
didn't
just
call me and say, "Hey, you want my spot?" I would have flown out for something like that. So I picture you at these club get-togethers as the little kid, like Goodfellas, when the mobsters are playing poker and Spider's getting them drinks and sandwiches. Was it like that, or they just welcome you at the table?
I mean, they pretty much welcome you. I mean, I was easily the youngest guy. I mean, the Danville Dukes thing being like a weekly thing, I mean, I became friends with a lot of those guys. Well, I mean, some of them passed on by now, but one of them, he used to invite me over to his house to have dinner and stuff. And, pretty much all the ones that were doing the Hot Rod Week, all but like one or two have passed away by now. So,
Yeah,
but I
that's
was
what's sad.
I was
That's
good
what's kind
friends
of
with
sad.
all
It's like
those guys.
you talk about having it. It's crazy to think about that they had a weekly get together like that, and now
Yeah, big.
guys
Yeah,
like
pretty
that
big.
barely do I mean, you hardly hear. Of course, we moved to Tennessee where we don't really know that inner circle of people. We keep to ourselves, but
We don't really like people.
Yeah, well, and we go to Cars and Coffee sometimes, at Mike Wolf's place, but it's not like there's not really like clubs around, and because everybody's just so busy, it's a different time of life now than back then, man. Those club guys, that was the everything. They drag race together. Some clubs build a car together, and it's kind of. I mean, I get it that we don't have time, but I kind of miss that era of all that stuff.
I miss the time frame and the cars from like the Danville Dukes one. Like out here, there's a lot of car stuff out here. Like every Saturday morning, you got something, but it doesn't start until 10 a.m. And it's like, I got kids that are up at 7 a.m. or earlier. I don't want to hang around until 10 a.m. to go somewhere, and everything. I love the Danville Dukes one. 7 a.m. You're out by 8 or 8:30. And then around here, that's
how our
there's
Cars
a
and
lot of
Coffees are here. They're done by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, no. See here, we don't start till 10 o'clock, and then it's a bunch of exotic cars and tuner cars, and it's not my thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just can't. We got a customer that had a fancy Lamborghini that's brand new. I sat in it. I could barely get out of it after I sat in it. I'm just like, I wouldn't even want to drive this to the gas station because I wouldn't be able to get out of it to pump my gas. I'd look like an idiot with like a $500,000 Lamborghini. What's the point of that? So I don't know. Those cars don't do it. I'd rather drive an old patina beater than something like that.
Yeah, I appreciate the supercars, but yeah, I'll walk right by a Ferrari to see a Pro Street Chevelle or something any day. Yeah.
Actually, the thing I've been looking at now is like some of the rat rods and stuff because those guys don't have any. It seems like everything else, the muscle cars and all that, if you look at one, you've pretty much seen them all almost. Your Chevelle is different, but it's not built the way that the other one. It's not. You didn't mark all the boxes that everybody else did and do all that. So most Chevelles and Camaros, it seems like, are all the same built now. But these rat rod guys they have ingenuity, and they build all these little brackets and these cool little shifters and these little rods to do all this cool stuff. I like looking at what some guy spent a week making instead of spending $150 to buy it.
Yeah,
but
I always said I'm not a fan of rat rods. I'm not like, ooh, I love rat rods. But like you say, most of those guys, you can look at it and there's something that they made with their torch, their hammer, and their vise and a drill. That's like, ooh, that's a cool little trinket, bracket, whatever, because they couldn't afford to buy it. So there is something on everything.
Or you have like Eric's loaded little roadster pickup that he built that is like way over the top of all that stuff. So
yeah,
I mean that's one car there that's that's at the top of my list pretty much, or one or two for sure.
Yeah, he's talking about Eric Peratt at Pinky's Rod Shop, so we got to get him on here too. He said he'd do that, he'd do it, so we got to get Eric on here.
I told you before, if I ever won the lotto, I'd have him build me something, but he'll probably retire before I ever win the lotto. And in Utah, they don't even have the lotto, so that's my chances are going to get winning it. So
he actually said that during his Rod and Custom Hall of Fame induction this January, February. He goes, I got a handful of cars left, and now I'm going to retire.
He's going to be able to retire.
Yeah, he was smart. He built a building in a good area and the brewery, and Eric's a very smart guy. I got a lot of respect for that guy. He's a little smarter than we are, probably. So yeah.
Allegedly.
I just love, there's not a lot of builders out there that I've loved every car that he's ever built, pretty much. I mean, I can't think of any one that I did not like. Everyone usually throws like an oddball out there that you're like, well, I like all of them but that one. And I don't think there's a single car Eric's ever built that I don't like.
Yeah, I agree with that. Same with Scott Sullivan, and I'd say Alan Johnson's up there on my list too. And there's
Bobby Alloway.
Yeah.
So which car did Strange Motion build that you were like, I don't like that?
Everyone.
Well, pretty much the Corvair. I mean, a purple Corvair.
All right, this is over. This is done.
Actually, I think my favorite one though is a Falcon. So, which I don't even think that car ever really got to be finished, but still probably one of my favorites.
Kinda. It sat stalled out. We took it to SEMA as a pusher roller, looked done, no wiring, no brakes on it, and then it sat for 3.5 years in our shop. And our buddy Ryan from Minnesota bought it. We blew it apart, freshened the paint. He wired it, He took it to like three shows, 2 indoor shows. He took it to Detroit, the Gophers State Timing Association, and then Columbus. And this is a neat little trivia. He sold it to a shop that was mostly a consignment shop at the time, which is classic car studio guys that are amazing builders, and they had the Speed as a new black. They bought it, changed a couple things on it, and sold it to Southern California. So yeah.
What's the trivia about?
That they bought the car.
I think he did his own punchline, didn't he?
I wasn't asking. I'm giving you trivia.
Oh, okay. But that is considered the effing Falcon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had its own name.
I want to build another.
I have a thing for a round tube chassis. I don't know if you ever saw the round tube when I was building.
That was going to be the segue. When I was there, you had this truck chassis, right?
Yeah.
With an inline motor that you were building. It was supposed to maybe go to Detroit, right?
It's still supposed to be one day, I guess, from what I understand. I actually looked at pictures the other day. So it's been 10 years since he picked it up. So that it was all my customers ended up being friends pretty much, which might have been a bad thing, probably maybe looking back. I don't know. I mean, one of them I just inherited a car from when he passed away. One of them just called me 2 weeks ago on the phone to tell me all about how he went to the Peterson Museum. And then Chris hit me up about trying to do new grills in his Denali that only has 5,000 miles on it. It's a 2008. So I've remained friends with all of them. And Josh, he was a really good customer. He owned that little Hot Wheels S10, the one with the the chrome flames on it and stuff. You know, it was a Hot Wheel little truck and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he owned that, and that's how I met him. The truck had numerous issues, so he wanted just to drive it. That's all he wanted. He just wanted to drive this truck. So he sent it to me, and we completely rebuilt it mechanically, pretty much. Got it to where he'd drive it. He'd drive the crap out of that thing. And then he said, I want to build a C10. And I had like a shop truck when I was building for a little while that was like teal and white. And he said, I want to buy that C10. And then he said, well, what do you want to do to it? And I was like, well, I think it'd be cool to build like a round tube frame and all this stuff. And he goes, oh, we'll do that. And I go, then why? Let's not start with that truck, because that truck's too far in the wrong direction already. So let's start over with a new truck for you. I can find you a new truck. At the wrecking yard back then, they were like 1 in a million, a C10. I mean, shoot, we found a nice short bed fleet side 67 for them. And it was cheap back then. I mean, the things didn't cost that. You know, it wasn't $25,000 because it had perfect light blue patina, which it did. Mm-hmm. It had perfect light blue patina, so we cut it up. But so we started building all this stuff, and then worked on it for a couple of years, probably maybe more than that. But everything was handmade, everything. Max Fish did a bunch of the front suspension on it, some of the other parts on it. Max would actually come to the shop and work for about a week, a month there for 6 months or more, pretty much. So Max did a lot of that stuff, and then Josh had gotten married and bought a condominium or a house, something like that. So he said, I need to hold off on the truck for a little bit. All right, no big deal, whatever. He's like, probably like 3 months or so. Okay, no big deal. So we just
kept a cat trying to join us back here.
Maybe you should have them on one day.
They make their appearance going every once in a while.
So we kept going, and every now and then we'd work on it. If we were waiting on parts for something else, we'd just work on it a little bit here and a little bit there. 3 months turned into 6 months, and then 6 months turned into 9 months, and then 9 months turned into a year. And finally, that was kind of during my burnout phase anyway. So, having a small shop with the truck there, can't really work on it. It was like the main project at the time. I could only fit like 4 or 5 cars at a time, and that takes up more than one space because it's got parts scattered everywhere. Mm-hmm. So finally I called him and was like, you're just going to have to pick it up. Like, I can't keep waiting or anything. So he said, okay, all right, that's fine. So it's been 10 years since he picked it up. And
wow.
I hear it's in Texas somewhere. That's all. Every now and then somebody will call me or tell me something, message me, saw the truck, something like that. But I don't think it's really come a lot further necessarily than it was. So the part that was cool about that truck is it was going to be 3/4 scale. So it wasn't a full size C10 actually. So we had Colorado back window, like a curved Colorado back window in it. We cut out the whole cab of a Colorado to weld it in. It's going to be a unibody. So it was about 3 inches narrower than a regular C10.
I forgot
The
about
wheel
that.
wells were redone. The front end was longer. The tailgate was angled like Dave Neal likes to do. The top was chopped a little bit, like an inch and a half-ish. So just to get the windshield under the hood, pretty much. So, no, that was going to be even today, looking at pictures of it, it'd still be a contender today.
Yeah, definitely. The chassis on that thing was incredible. Yeah.
And that's 15 years ago, pretty much all that work was done.
So speaking of Chris's vehicle, what again was that one? And when was this about that same time you were working on that?
So
I think you were.
So
I don't
Chris
think
is
that was in the shop when I came by. I think it was shortly after that when you started the Tahoe.
Chris's Denali went to SEMA in 10, I think. And
Okay.
Tim, just for the record, I've never pushed a vehicle into SEMA or out of SEMA.
We cannot say that. We
In
cannot.
fact, so the Denali, the night before, so that was the worst SEMA thrash ever. Was the Denali? We came into work. Max was staying at my house, and we came into work one morning at like 7 o'clock, and we worked all the way straight through till the next day at about 11 a.m. and then loaded it on the trailer and then drove to Vegas. So
Sounds
we worked,
normal.
I think I added up when it was 36 hours straight of working and then to drive. In fact, I fell asleep like halfway down the road.
Yeah, but you've only got a part-time drive to get to
Yeah,
Vegas,
we did that,
so.
and then would do a burner straight through like 28 hours, switching a driver each time we needed fuel.
Well, so the bad part about Chris's Denali is it was black, and then it was filthy from working on it because we had to put the front end, all those pieces on it and everything. And then we get to Vegas at like 1 a.m., and then we got the bright idea that we're going to wash it at the car wash at 1 a.m. in the morning there in Vegas. So then we wash it at 1 a.m., and then I think we were staying at the Orleans or something out there. So we parked the trailer, and then Chris wakes me up the next morning super early. He's like, it's covered in water spots. Nice. So nice. So it was black, washed at the car wash, and just got covered in water spots. So, but that year, Mitch Henderson had that Camaro that they were building, that they were pushing it in, and I remember driving around Mitch, in the Denali, and he goes, well, you got that done? And I say, hey, at least mine drives. Your Camaro's getting pushed in, buddy. So,
And he probably looked at you. At least mine doesn't have spots on it.
well, we wiped most of them off. We actually found a semi-truck in the parking lot for shade and kind of parked right up next to his trailer, found some shade and wiped off most of it. So
tell everybody, I remember I knew you were building it, and our late buddy Ron Knowles was just like beside himself over that thing.
Or the
Because
Denali?
Yeah, because it's all-wheel drive still. It's four-wheel drive.
It's all-wheel drive.
Hammered on the ground, and you used some weird stuff in that to make that work, right? Some Nissan stuff, was that right?
No, so most of that was Max's idea. Well, Max, coupled with a wrecking yard, is pretty good connection there.
Max's brain does not work like other people's brain either. Max is very talented and comes up with some crazy stuff.
So we had the front carrier in the Denali is too wide. You can't get it that low. It's impossible. The axle doesn't have enough movement in it. So we needed a narrower carrier. So Max is like, I'm going to go find a narrower carrier. But we needed, that's got a 6.2 liter in it with a supercharger later on. So it's got, good horsepower too. And it's got 26-inch wheels on it. So it's got, a lot of stress on it too. So I needed something that was at least as big as it had stock. So he found a Toyota TRD little pickup, had the same size ring gear as what the Denali had in a much smaller package. And then the next problem was we had to find a gear ratio that would match the back because it's all-wheel drive all the time. So you got to have matching gear ratios front to back, and there's only so many at that time you could have bought for the back to make it match to the front. So I think we went through a couple different ones before he finally figured out the one that would work. But it's still, those CVs are like right there. I mean, they don't have any more travel in them, like none at all.
So that was first black. My cat's going to show his butthole to you here in a minute. So yeah. And then it got painted after that. What, a year or two? It got graphics and stuff on it.
That was all just one after the other. It never went anywhere. So Chris bought it brand new. He bought those wheels on the way home from the dealership, the KMCs that it had on it, which thankfully now it has something different on it because I never liked those wheels ever. So he bought those, and then he drove it for like 800 miles or something like that, and then he bought a Kelderman kit. And he brought that's how the whole car started, was a Kelderman kit. So he wanted a Kelderman kit put on it, and then
Which
basically,
do you know what Jeff Kelderman just bought?
No.
He bought the actual movie car from Joe Dirt. He's the guy that bought that here recently.
Oh yeah.
He had it on display at Des Moines. Yeah, the one that gets in the impound yard and he couldn't afford to get back out. The wing car that's all multicolored. Kelderman just bought the Joe Dirt movie car. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, go ahead.
Chris bought the Kelderman kit, and it just wasn't. I mean, the tire bottomed out at the wheel lip. That's all it did, pretty much. I mean, it moved like an inch and a half. So he's like, that's not good enough. I want it all the way on the ground. And I'm like, go buy something else, and we'll put that all the way on the ground. In fact, I tried to talk him into buying my C10. I said, just leave your Denali the way it is, and then buy my C10 and build that. But he really wanted to build the Denali, so we built the Denali. But the other bad part is, back then, that today you can like do whatever you want with a computer to a vehicle. Well, maybe not the brand new ones, but in today's standards, an 08 Denali, you can do whatever you want to that computer. But back then, we couldn't do any of that. So it had all the sport mode suspension. So it had the soft and the firm and the comfort ride. You could pick all that and stuff. So we had to reuse all those shocks. We had to mount them cantilevered, put them here, put them there, to reuse all that so that the check engine lights didn't all come on. So that car will legally pass smog in the state of California at a ref-only station.
We don't have to worry about it. I don't think we own a late model vehicle that the dash lights are all off. We just put a piece of tape over them.
Check engine light's not supposed to be on?
Yeah.
I thought that let you know that the engine was still there.
Yeah, I thought it meant it had been checked.
Yeah, like the engine's there. If like the light goes off, that means your engine's missing.
No, we don't have any of that stuff here, but there they still have it, and he's got to take it every 2 years over and over again. And I don't think they run it on the dyno because it's all-wheel drive, so they can't really run it on the dyno. But they still, they still got to plug it into the computer and do all that stuff to it and everything. One time a guy complained about the fuel tank because it is aluminum, but we machined pieces for the top of it, and we cut out all the rollover valves in the plastic tank and put all of that stuff in the aluminum tank. And Chris has pictures of it all printed out in the glove box. So
do you have any trouble with the aluminum tank? We got a car. We usually put like stainless or steel tanks in them. And I got a car, and customer says, no, I wanted a guy that's really good at, like, he hand fabricates dragster bodies and stuff out of aluminum. And I wanted him to build something crazy for me. And the customer's like, no, I don't want an aluminum tank. It messes with the fuel. I never really heard that until he said that.
His check engine light's not on, so GM's happy with it.
Right, yeah.
And it's probably got bad gas in it because it sits in the garage all the time.
Yeah.
I thought it had like 12,000 miles, and then he told me, he goes, no, it only has like 5. I was like, 5,000 miles, and it's a 2008?
Wow.
Like, at this point, just keep it, For what the OBSs are selling for, if you keep that car for another 10 years, maybe you'll get what you put into it back out of it.
Right.
You saved it for so long, you actually got what you put into it back out of it.
Yeah. So after the Denali, what was up next? Was that?
That was pretty much. I was done after the Denali. Pretty much. That was one of the last ones. Before the Denali, there was the blue GTO that went to SEMA for that Car Crazy TV thing. And that was another one. The owner's a good friend of mine, but it has a big Pontiac engine in it, and it's got a gigantic Pro Charger on it. And I didn't do any of that stuff, so it doesn't run very well, and it sucks a lot of fuel. So the furthest it had ever driven was around my parking lot before we put it on the trailer to take it there. And then the Car Crazy thing, it's got to go up and down that ramp over and over again.
Yeah.
So I pull up, we filled it up with gas. I don't remember how much. That has an aluminum tank in it. It's been fine. So I remember the car crazy guy. I said, "I'll drive it if you need me to." And he, "Oh no, we can drive it. We got people here. They know how to drive this stuff." All right, fine. I think that one might have been the one we saw Carrie at the Chipotle. That might have been that because I wasn't at SEMA very much that whole year. I was burned out from that car too. So then I get a call, and one of the guys from Car Crazy is like, "We can't get this thing up the ramp." So okay, he goes, "Can you get up the ramp?"
Yep.
I go, "Yeah, I can probably get it up the ramp." Yeah, he said, "You just got to feather the throttle, and then when it gets ready to hesitate, you got to just kind of stab it." Well, that's fine. Getting it in and out of the trailer and everything. There's nobody around, and then I get out there, and the guy's like, "All right," tosses me the keys, and there's like hundreds of people there in front of the stage, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, nice. Yeah, this is." I mean, the thing sounds wicked, but it has a crazy hesitation, right? I mean, it had like a quarter of a mile on it, when it went there.
Yeah.
At least it didn't get pushed. So, we're like, I'm feathering the throttle, kind of go up there and everything. But, the guy's mom got to meet Mary McGuire, and she's still thrilled to this day and everything. And that was her car, and then he got it from her. She bought it in the late 60s. So I like cars that have stories like that. She'd come out to the shop, and she had 3 boys, and she's telling me all about how all 3 boys came home from the hospital, and she'd wrap them up in the blanket, put them in that little footwell in the back seat. And I was like, well, finally, I understand what's wrong with them all. Bounced all the way home from the hospital. But she's great and everything. And, Mike's dad was great, too. And in fact, we got a bunch of pictures taken at Mike Chase's studio with the car and with all the family, and they let me in the picture. I felt like part of the family, even though I didn't have
you ever had dinner cooked at Mike Chase's place for you?
So no, I've been to Mike Chase's numerous times, and he would always do the cooking and take the pictures of it. But when lunchtime rolled around, we go to the Thai food place down the street.
Oh.
Now I hear of all these guys getting food cooked. So
he's an amazing chef. Amazing. Yeah, last time me and Carrie was both out there after SEMA, we went and he cooked a fancy meal. And Mike Chase, if some of you guys don't know, been around a long time, studio photographer a lot and outdoor, but for years he shot a good majority of the Easy Rider centerfolds and stuff with the ladies in it. So he's been around. But
Mike's awesome.
He's an amazing chef. Amazing chef.
Yeah, so we always had to go to the Thai place down the street. I think maybe he got kickback for it, for bringing more people in or something at the time.
Yeah.
But I think we took, 4 cars, 5 cars total Mike shot. So and every time we went to the Thai place. So
well, it was our anniversary when we were out there, so maybe it was a special occasion.
It was, and we were staying at Zane's, and they're good buddies too. So
but we'll go with it.
Mike, because you would, if you saw Mike anywhere, you would never place him as like a car or motor or photographer really at all. I mean,
he looks like an old surfer. He's a skater. I think he still skates. He wears Vans. Like even at like probably 60, he was still riding pools and ramps and mini ramps and stuff as skating. So
he was telling us all kinds of stories about a half pipe out back of his house and all this stuff back in the day.
Super rad guy.
Yeah. Mike's got some stories for sure.
So at this time you're married, right?
Yeah, so I got married in 2009. I'm not sure. I don't remember what year. I mean, I remember the first year for SEMA was 2005, and then that car went back in 2006 in the kicker booth that time. I don't remember what the other ones were, though, year-wise. I can't keep track of all that stuff. I can barely keep track of what years my kids were born, so if I can remember those years and not
you didn't have any kids.
I didn't have.
When was the first one born?
I was told at one point I would never be able to have kids. So that's
so the
why
first
those
one was born when?
He was born in 13.
Your dad didn't think you were. Was your dad going to not think you were smart enough while you were trying to make your kid? Was your dad going to walk in and say, "You're not doing that right. That looks terrible"?
He's not denying.
He's not denying.
Yeah, but I would never do that. Maybe that has happened.
Yeah.
Awkward. Anyway, okay. So
when did you have your first kid, Carrie?
13. He said 13.
13.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
And were you still running the shop at 13? 2013?
You're
No,
old.
I was probably. So I got out a little sooner, and then I had a guy that worked for me, Kim Fox. He was really good. After all, it's a tough business because I know why Zane yells at all these people because I would get them all. Like being an hour away from Wyotech, we get every one of their graduates, good or
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
And they all come in and they all have their mailbox and they all
Yep.
have the same exact resume. And
Mhm.
I'm like, come on, guys. Like, why go to a resume class and make the same exact resume? I used to get in trouble at Wyotech because they had a little board at the Sacramento one, and they'd bring us all up there and they show us their program and then they'd ask us what they should do to improve it. Well, I would give them suggestions. Everybody else would tell them how great they're doing, and then they'd get mad at me.
Yeah, we were both on the advisory board at Laramie and the Pennsylvania campus too. So yeah.
Yeah.
They keep inviting me back over. In fact, I got to speak at one of the graduations, and when the guy calls me to tell me, he goes, are you willing to speak at our graduation?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm willing to." I said, "I'm a little shocked that you're calling me," and he said, "Well, I didn't want to." He said, "My boss wants you to speak there. He made me call." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "That's fine." He goes, "But you have to write up your entire speech, and I have to read it first."
No, you have to
Like,
get a
that's fine.
pre-approval.
It has to be positive.
Yeah, I said, "I'm not going to say anything bad. Like, some of that it can like jumpstart the kid. I mean, really, if you go in there with some previous experience, and then you have the ability to work on all that equipment and gain some skills, and you still have the drive after, you'll do fine. But there's so many of them that just don't have any of that, but they have the certificate from graduating there, and then they want to go. Some people want to do the work, but they don't really want to do the work. Like it's different.
Yeah, they watch it on TV and they think it's all bunnies and rainbows and rock star spotlights and everything, and they don't really
realize
realize.
you might have to do it four times. My problem is that like I do one side, and I'm good. Like, cool, I figured it out. Looks great. Oh man, now I got to do the other side. So that's why Kim, my one guy, we worked well because he couldn't see the process through in his own mind. Like in my mind, I can see all the pieces come together. I can see where I need to weld it. I can kind of see all that like in my head. And really, when I'm working, I'm just doing. Like I'm not really thinking about it, unless something comes up and it doesn't work right. Then I got to kind of go back. So Kim would get mad at me all the time because he's like, "I don't understand it. You can like just come out here and slam all this stuff together, like, and you just know where it all goes." I was like, "That's how my brain works." Like, I don't know. But then he could watch me do that, and then he could do it. So he'd have to see it, and then he could duplicate it. So him and I worked really good together, and he was really tedious and meticulous. So I stopped working there, and I actually started working at the wrecking yard again. Sometimes, so when my wife was pregnant with my oldest, so he was born in 13, so like late 12. She ended up
Is
in
that
the
the one
hospital.
we think might be mine?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know about that one. So she ended up in the hospital for about 3 weeks total throughout the whole pregnancy. And 2 of the weeks was all the way in Walnut Creek. So that's about 45 minutes or so from where we are. So it's, it got to the point where it was hard to be self-employed and make money, be there for her, like almost an hour away, and, try to do it all. So that, and then coupled with the C10 kind of, falling apart and then just getting burned out. That's pretty much what it was. Like, it was just so much stuff at one point that I was just like, I'm just done, So I went back to the wrecking yard for a little bit, but then that business had changed so much that they'd been getting offers to buy them, and they were kind of leaning that way just because it was the easier thing to do. Because again, it's hard to find workers, especially doing that work, because you can't pay hardly anything, and it's super dirty and greasy and actual hard work. So there was some talks of that, and then one day a buddy of mine owned an HVAC company, and he posted on Instagram how hard it is to find workers to do this job. And I just commented, I was like, how hard can it really be? And he's like, why don't you come find out? And I was like, all right, whatever. So that's how I started doing HVAC. Was merely like a joke on Instagram, pretty much. But so he was doing. It's like, while the job is not for me, it's a really good job. Like, it's a good career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if one of my kids wanted to do that, I'd be like, that's a really good career. It pays great. I mean, I made more money than I've ever made in my life doing that. But so the first gig was new construction and hotel retrofits. So we do all startup stuff, not like change outs and stuff in houses, really. They were all like custom homes. And we actually build some architectural stuff. In fact, for one building, I built a chimney cap that was 12 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 4 feet tall for this event center in Yountville. In fact, you can still see it if you drive down Highway 29 and you look over. It's got a giant chimney cap up there on the building that I built. Still sitting there. Still welded together even.
Still sitting together.
Yeah. So we were doing all that, but then that works hard on you as you get older because it's a lot of ladders and it's being up on this, framed in houses that are overhanging all this stuff, and you're up on these roofs and you're on scaffolding and, you're hurting your back all the time and all this stuff. So I'd gotten an offer at one of the biggest mechanical contractors in the area in the service department. So that one was the union job, actually. So I was part of a sheet metal union for about 3 years now, or was. I actually still have a little pension money, though. So I went over there and did that, and he got me hired on because for the first guy, we were doing LG equipment, almost all LG equipment. So I'd started up probably 50 different LG air conditioning units total. And I became pretty good friends with the tech guys. They'd have like a local tech guy, then they'd have like a regional tech guy, and then they'd have like a nation tech guy. So I was friends with almost all of them. And the regional one would come out once because we had one unit that was always problems from the very beginning of all these problems and stuff. So the regional guy comes to look at it, and it's in Yountville, right there in like a biggest tourist town in Napa, pretty well, St. Helena too, one of the biggest touristy towns. So it's right there, little boutique hotel. And he's looking at this thing, and we're kind of brainstorming back and forth. And he looks at me, and he goes, "Did you take our training course?" And I'm like, "Nope. Didn't take it." And he goes, "So you mean to tell me you don't have a certificate for our training and installation course?" Nope, don't have one. And he goes, "What is your email?" And I was like, so I told him, and he goes, "I'm going to send you all the certificates we have." He goes, "You know more than anybody that's ever left one of those training courses from like all your experience, and you should have that." And I was like, "Okay." So then when the other job came around, he asked me, he goes, "Do you have any like certificates and anything?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I got an LG." And he goes, "You have an LG certificate?" I was like, "Yep, I got every one of the LG certificates." And he's like, "All right, well, we can get you right in as a journeyman. You can skip all this other stuff. You don't have to do any of this stuff, and you'll be right into work stuff." So the service work kind of sucks because when you're in grandma's attic that's full of rats and dead mice and rat shit everywhere and everything, it's less than pleasant doing that kind of stuff. But then that job I got into controls and startups, and they were big on school jobs. So they did Napa Valley Unified School District was like their biggest job. The schools in California, they get all this bond money, which is total crap because the taxpayers have to pay all this money and this bond money. And then they throw all of this into the schools to try to improve them. But they don't do it very well. They like paint them, they put new air conditioners in, and they put a roof on them. And we do it all from the day school gets out to the day school gets in. So guess who's working all kinds of overtime every summer? Me. So it was kind of a bummer because we were on, I guess it was just 2 summers. So I did a little bit the first and then the next. So pretty much my kids would get out of school in summer and I'd be gone. Like 60-hour weeks, 70-hour, and then as the time gets closer and closer to school, all the stuff has to run. It all starts showing up later in the year, later and later and later. Saturdays you're there working late. And one Saturday I was totally burned out. In fact, I called my manager and I said, I need help. And he goes, well, call somebody. See if they can come help you, I'll prove it. So I call a couple people. They're like, no, we're good. The bad part is they made so much money just working normal time. Nobody wanted to work overtime because the time and a half gets taxed so much higher. And then if you get into double time, it gets taxed even way higher. So in the summertime, I'd get one check had like $1,200 taken out in taxes for 1 week's pay.
Wow.
And it's just like, I mean, I'm not even gaining anything. I'm just busting my butt to do all this work, get it done, so I could pay a bunch of taxes. So I remember I was sitting in this school. It was a Saturday. I called him back, and I was like, nobody wants to come work. And he goes, well, I got to figure it out then. Do what you got to do. And I was like, really? You know, and I called my wife, and I was like, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to go put my keys on his desk, text him a picture of it, and be done. And she's like, no, she's the logical thinker. See, that's how I think. I'm like, I'm done right now. Like, I'm done right now. I'm not done in 2 months. I'm done right now. So she's like, no, you can't do that. Like, you have to stay and get all that done. And I was like, this is like the 6th or 8th Saturday in a row to be working, you know? Like, so I was scrolling Instagram. I had like a Bluetooth speaker that was on as loud as it could go, which if anybody knows me and you come into the shop and the speaker's on as loud as it can go, you probably don't want to ask any questions or bother me, because that usually means I'm in a bad mood. So I had this going, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and I come across this picture just out of the blue, and it's like this kid holding up a sign, and the sign, you can't see the kid's face. You see like the top of the head and like the hands holding the sign, and it says, be the person the world needs you to be. And I like stop and I look, and I'm like, okay. And then I overanalyze, and I like start diagnosing this thing, and I'm like, okay, let's start the world. Okay, so who's the world? All right. So to me, my world, it would be my family, my wife, my kids, that kind of stuff. So I'm like, so be the person they need me to be. So I'm looking around. I was like, well, this probably isn't the person they need me to be. You know, like, sure, the money's nice. The government sure loves it. So, but then I'm like, all right, so then let's look at this a different way. The world as a whole, you know, great big world. Am I the person that world needs me to be? You know, I'm like, you know, there's tons of qualified guys that work at this company that can go fix grandma's AC or furnace when it's broke. It's not really my thing. Like, I'm all right at it. You know, it's kind of like cars. I'm all right at it, but you know, so I'm like, back when I was doing cars, I remember I'd get messages every now and then from like younger people saying how like they watched how I did something and that motivated them. And I was like, you know, that's the world. You know, it's some guy I don't know from Alabama or wherever they're from. You know, they'd like, you know, mail me, like snail mail me stuff, wanting stickers and stuff like that. You know, and I'd mail the stuff back to them. Like, I'm not going to ghost them or do anything like that. You know, so I'm like, that's the world. And then my wife and kids are the world. So this isn't the person they need me to be. So I finished out that summer, and that's when we started looking to go somewhere else. So between realizing how crappy the school system is ran there in probably most of California, definitely in Napa, you know, the money is not distributed the way it should be. The people at the top weigh way too much, and the teachers that interact with the kids make like dirt. So that all needs to come more level, but it's never going to happen. So it's never, you know, my kids are in school now. They're not in school in 15 years. Well, yeah, one will be in school. But I mean, by the time there's change, it's too late for them. So I'm like, you know, we need to go somewhere where family, kids, school, all that stuff is better. You know, we lived like a quarter of a mile from the school where we were in Napa. In fact, that's one of the schools we remodeled one summer. I drove literally a quarter mile back and forth to work every day, which is nice when you're working like 10, 11, 12 hours at the school and then you just walk back home. But so I'm like, you know, my wife would walk to the corner pretty much to meet them. She wouldn't even let them walk all the way to school. Here, they scooter. We don't even know where they are. In fact, we got one an Apple Watch.
Wait.
What's that?
BMXers have this thing. Friends don't let friends have scooter kids. Scooters aren't cool. I don't know if you knew. Get them a bicycle. Get them Scooters are worse than rollerblades.
So here it's all about scooters, man.
Oh,
Scooters
man.
and electric dirt bikes. But now the cops are starting to impound the electric dirt bikes. So it has to have a pedals or it gets impounded pretty much. And it's, they're buying like these electric dirt bikes for like $4,000 or $5,000. And then they're going out and they're riding them all over and then they're getting them impounded, spending $600 to get it out of the impound lot.
My house is like 2 miles from the shop, and I've looked at those electric things to go back and forth to the shop. And
get you a scooter.
It's not getting it. Our driveway is over a quarter mile long, and it climbs or descends 250 feet. So, I hit it, and it winds through a timber, so I'd hit a tree.
Yeah.
No scooter.
Anyway, so the kids are out riding those ridiculous scooters.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different lifestyle, and that's what you guys are looking for.
So how did you pick Utah?
I wanted somewhere that was within a day drive. It's like 11 hours. It is a day drive, but man, it's gotten to be a really long day drive now. I mean, when I moved here 6 months before my wife and kids, and I drive back on like a Friday afternoon and then drive back here on a Sunday. And that is a long drive when you're doing that every few weeks and stuff. But
so now it makes that drive even longer that you've done it like that for so long.
Yeah.
Miserable.
It's the last stretch. Like Vegas to here is like 2 hours. And that stretch, man, is so long. And then it's like the Bay Area going back the other way is so long going through the Bay Area, which that's partially the Bay Area. But so I can't. Well, Speed Tech needed a person, a fab guy, and here big families are like a thing around here. I would assume the average like kid count for a family is probably 3 or 4. I mean, there's not really many people that have like 1 or 2 kids. I mean, so I mean, we go out with 4 kids. And they ask us if we're going to have any more.
So is it boring in Utah? They just have sex all the time, or what?
Maybe. Well, I guess it's part of the LDS religion. Maybe, I don't know. But so Speed Tech had this Scout they were building that was right up my alley because they pretty much took the skin of a Scout and they were building this little pro touring little beach cruiser thing for this guy. So I was like, all right, super nice shop. They got this super cool project. The pay made it worth it. So I bought a house out here when I still had my HVAC job. So I was making so much doing HVAC that I could actually qualify for 2 mortgages. So we bought a house here while we still had the house in Napa, so we didn't have to sell anything before coming. And then Jamie stayed in Napa for 6 months or so with the kids till they finished out school. So I came here to work at Speed Tech 2 Januaries ago. And then when I walk in, my first job is a 69 Camaro. Not the Scout that I was like excited to work on. And I was like, all right, it's been probably 4 or 5-ish years since I've like done this work consistently. Maybe I can't do it anymore. We'll see. So kind of knocked out that Camaro and then got going on the Scout a little bit. Well, then we had a Chevelle that needed to be put together. So then started working on the Chevelle some. Then I got to go back on the Scout for a little while. So the Scout was fun. That's a fun project. Well, then a couple months go by and this other Camaro comes in. Hey, you did a good job on the black Camaro. You think you could just knock out this one real quick? Oh, yeah, because I love putting a full floor in a Camaro and a firewall and a dash top and 2 inner rockers and 1 outer rocker and a taillight panel and a roll bar and all of that in like a month. That just sounds so much fun. So I did it, and then we got back on the Scout a little bit. And then they were talking at that time. I mean, it wasn't really talked about, but you could tell that there was going to be like an ownership change in that. And Blake even was talking about taking over the shop as warehouse space, because they needed more warehouse space. So the shop was going to get smaller, and he didn't really like the projects like the Scout, And really, I like building a variety of stuff. I mean, I got a C1 Corvette, a Nomad. There's a Mustang right there. Not that I really love the Mustang, but the other 2 are all right. But so I don't really want to build the same Camaro over and over again. And I don't really want to build everything to have a Speed Tech chassis. You know, if something was a 4-wheel drive, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with almost like a restoration kind of thing, you know, something different, a little bit of variety and stuff. But I could tell that it was all going to be the same, which I should have known. I mean, it's like manufacturers. They're obviously going to use their own parts on every build. And most of those are Camaro, Chevelle, now into the Mopars and stuff like that. This Mustang behind me, it's getting a Speed Tech chassis on it. So, I mean, I still talk to the people there and stuff. It's not like it's a bad thing, but they didn't really want to do the shop stuff necessarily. And I knew that the sale part was going to happen sooner than it was later. So I kind of started looking at other opportunities, and that's when I found this place. So I worked at Steve's Hot Rod Garage, and I was hired as a fab guy. So this is technically the fab shop. This building's like 2,000 square feet or so. And as you can tell, that's really fab work, right? There's like a finished assembly on a Nomad. But so the main shop's up the road, about a quarter mile or so up the road. And they do like maintenance and repairs. And they were doing more of this stuff. But now all the assembly stuff the full assembly has made its way down here now, along with big fab stuff as well. So like the Mustang, we're moving body lines to try to make a Mustang look good.
Tim doesn't like Mustangs. I don't know if you heard that or not.
Yeah, did you hear that?
I'm hoping if I move all the wheel wells, it'll look good. So
yeah, I mean, I don't hate Mustangs, but I don't like them. They're not my favorite. So yeah, even at the good guys for Street Machine of the Year, there was 3 Mustangs in there, and I told the one guy, "You remember what I told you at SEMA?" Well, we had to censor it because we're at an award ceremony, and he goes, "Yeah, you told me you don't like Mustangs," and I'm like, "Yeah." So then the other guys are like, "Well, we heard you don't like Mustangs," as I'm doing all the interviews of 3 other Mustangs in the top 5, and then the next day at the award ceremony, I was like, "Okay, I need to apologize to everybody when a Mustang came through. If I offended anybody because I said I don't like Mustangs, I need to apologize and let you all know I don't like Camaros either." So it wasn't really an apology, but I got people to laugh. So I've said many times, I hope I can get through my career without working on another Mustang or another Camaro. I hope. Yeah.
Which Kiefer's Mustang is super nice too.
No, that's incredible.
You know,
yeah. That was the guy too that I told him. Yeah.
It's like, which is the same thing. It's like the quality of the car is amazing. It's like over the top amazing, but the canvas is still a Mustang, you know. I get the same one.
I also thanked him because that Mustang that Kiefer started with was an Eleanor car.
Yeah, so this one was too.
Yeah, and I'm going to thank you for removing an Eleanor car from the road.
Had all the Eleanor stuff on it, which luckily the owner, he's an older guy and he's pretty cool. He does not want an Eleanor. He wants a Bullet Mustang, which I guess if you're going to have a Mustang, that's probably the coolest maybe one. Maybe, I don't know, maybe because Steve McQueen drove it, it's the coolest one. But he wants a Mustang where if Steve McQueen was still alive and he wanted to remake that movie, that this is the Mustang he would drive.
Cool.
So that's what he wants. But I'll probably give him something totally different. Just, you know, my dad wanted a Blazer with a roof that came off and on, and that's
yeah, right, yeah.
There's
kids now that don't know who Steve McQueen is. There'll be people listening to this that don't know who Steve McQueen is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the family, obviously, because they're on scooters in the neighborhood, they all moved up to Utah, and you like Utah a lot better than California.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's very. There's a lot more freedom here for sure. You know, you go to DMV and the lady comes out to check the VIN on my little roadster, and she goes, "I see you don't have a spot for a front license plate. You don't need one of those here." And I was like,
"Yeah,
okay," you know. So it's very.
Yeah, we didn't talk about. We glassed over somehow the little Woody Blue Roadster.
So that was. So the orange truck we showed in 06. So went to SEMA 05, did the whole circuit in 6. So that was starting back then. It was the San Francisco Rod and Custom Show, then the Grand National, then Sacramento, and then then the Good Guys shows.
I forgot about the San Francisco. They don't even do the San Francisco show anymore.
No, that was Rick Perry, and he stopped doing it when he was still alive. His health was bad. He passed away now, and that George Haig would help him do a lot of that show too. I mean, the Cow Palace is just a crappy venue. I mean, it really is. Like, it's. I mean, the Grand National, they had a venue in San Francisco for 1 year. I don't remember where it was. It was under a freeway. It was the year Troy had Sniper there. And I remember it was raining and the roof leaked really bad, and they had like a bunch of buckets trying to catch water, like all throughout the building, pretty much.
I went to San Mateo. I think it was in San Mateo twice. I know I went
that
at least
was a
1 year
couple
in San
years.
Mateo.
Yeah, so San Mateo, I think Zane had those 2 Woodies of Dick Longs. Those were in San Mateo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the year Gary Metters had Steve Mole build him that yellow Roadster. That was a San Mateo year. I think San Mateo was 2 years maybe.
Yeah, I went at least
Which
one.
that was an okay venue too. I mean, the Oakland Coliseum was still the best venue of all of those, just because of the building. You had like the whole round part and the center part and the offshoots. It was just a cool building to have a show in. I mean, all those shows started in the Bay Area, so all those guys down in SoCal that want to tell you that's not where cars started, I mean, you can tell right there. Their biggest show in SoCal started in the Bay Area.
Yeah, until John Buck bought it, and moved it down, which it's phenomenal at Pomona. So he's done a good job.
John Buck didn't move it. John Buck bought it after the first or second year it had already moved.
Oh, okay. Who moved it down there?
I don't know who owned it at the time, but John Buck worked for the Fairplex. So he was the ones that signed them up and rented them the facility.
Yeah, that's right.
And then after seeing it, I don't remember if he did it after the first year or the second year, but he could see the opportunity of growth and all that stuff. So then he bought it right shortly after that. But that's a great show. Nothing against that show or anything.
It's the best indoor show in the country, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then my little blue Roadster, we finished up for 08 to try for AMBR, which, back then it was still like an ISCA points thing, and the trunk wasn't finished, so they got 0 points. There's no hood, so you get 0 points. So basically, if you have a crappy hood, you get more points than me because I don't have a hood at all. If you got crappy fenders, you get more points because I don't get any at all. And so since then the judging has changed. So maybe it would have done a little bit better. I don't, but that car wasn't really finished either. We didn't even know if it would even start pushing it in the building. That got pushed in the building, Tim.
I was going to say, push something in the building.
I never pushed one into SEMA, but that got pushed in. In fact, I don't think the transmission had enough fluid in it, so I started it and it fired right up. And the guy's like, "Does it move forward?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I get in, push the brake, it moves forward. And he goes, "Does it go back?" I look at him, I go, "It goes forward. Don't you think it's going to go back also?" He's like, "Okay, yeah, you're right." And I put it in park, shut off. I was like, "Whew, I don't think it would have gone backwards."
And you still own that car too, right?
Was that? Yeah, I still own that. That's my favorite car. It just gets driven the least. So I was actually out driving it. I drove to Lowe's last night to pick up some stuff. So
get some more wood for it.
Yeah, get some more wood. Here the wood's not great because it's hot and it's dry. So the dryness doesn't help the wood very much. But it's still actually held together pretty nice. That's my nicest car. Quality wise, of every car I own, that's definitely my nicest one. So the bottom of the floor has been wet sanded and buffed, and every part of the frame has been. The transmission case was, the side of the engine block was. I mean, that car was nice. In fact, the judging sheet didn't really have anything wrong with it. There was 2 things on the judging sheet that the guy didn't like. There was dust on the transmission, which my painter cleaned underneath, and he swears there's 0 dust on that transmission unless it came throughout the show. And then there was the carpet along the side where the seats bolted down, the carpet raised up just a hair, like along the edge. So it goes up and then it goes whoop a little bit. So those were the only 2 things that were actually written on the judging sheet that were negatives. Everything else just wasn't there. There was no top, no trunk, no fenders, no hood. I mean, it just didn't happen.
Sometimes those judges' seat from indoor shows are pretty entertaining, but they also make you angry in some part. Like we did the Copper Buick that we had and did all the California stuff. And
what year was that you guys brought that up?
I don't know, but I remember that was maybe one of the first times I talked to you in person instead of online.
Yeah,
I met you in the.
Yeah, but was that 06 or 7 or 8?
7.
It had to have been one of those.
I was thinking it was 07. That's 09 right there.
So it was 09. It was in Rod and Custom.
I'm thinking it was 07.
So you weren't in Sacramento when we won the Barris Award then?
No, we
I don't
weren't
think
there
so.
then.
Because JF had his Henry J. Then
When the year we were showing that out there, JF was showing the yellow pearl Chrysler wagon. So that was 2 years after the Henry J. I think he got the wagon done. I think
because I'm also the youngest guy to ever been in the Sacramento Legends Hall of Fame too.
Oh, cool! That's
You put
awesome.
that in your introduction. So
We already
I was
did the
inducted
introduction.
6 years-
We don't edit this. We're not going back.
Same year as George Barris, actually. So the little picture
Wow.
is George Barris sitting next to me. And then
Awesome.
who was the other guy? I think Don Lowe, maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't
he's
remember
a-
for sure.
He's a
What
hell
if
of
I
a
saw the
custom
picture?
build.
Yeah, he is. He is for sure.
We're
He's an
sidetracked.
under.
I started talking about something, but I was going someplace. I lost it.
Actually, I was inducted into the Legends Hall of Fame twice because I won Builder of the Year and the Barris Award. So that
No,
qualifies
cool.
for two.
Yeah. And then if
I
you
got
win,
one
also, if you
jacket.
win a Bertolucci, the Barris, there's another B, right?
Balon.
Oh, yeah,
Balon.
there's Balon. So you win any of them.
Yeah.
And it's like Zane, his little trivia, he's built cars that's won the Bertolucci, which is
But his name was never on it.
Yeah, because it's the owner of the car, not the builder. So his shop has won that at least 3, if not 4 times. They've won the Bertolucci award. So yeah.
Which that one's really one of the best ones to win too. When I won the Barris Award, it was picked by John Barris, so that one was pretty cool. Now it's like a grandson, so it's kind of lost a little bit to me. I don't know, maybe not, but it's like when his own son's picking it, it's pretty cool. And he had like an old time judge guy that was helping him to do it.
Yeah.
So, and that was actually San Francisco and Sacramento. You know, I put the truck up on stands and everything, see under it, which underneath it's decent. I was 20 years old when I built it, so it's not that nice, but it's somewhat nice. And I got so irritated putting it up on those stands with the air ride and all that. The wheels move and they want to kick the stands out and all that stuff. So finally, when we got there, I was like, you know what? Heck with this stuff. We haven't won anything at any of these indoor shows. We're just going to lay it on the ground. I'm not even going to open the hood or anything like that. It's just going to sit there. I'm just done doing all this stuff. That's how I am. See, like I'm just done right then. Done right then. So the car drives with it all aired out. So we aired it out and then kind of just drove it like onto the display, and then that was it. Sat there. I think Sunday I might have opened the hood in the back, but the rest of the weekend it was nothing. It was. And then by then I was irritated. Everybody thought it was fiberglass too. So I'd had a bunch of pictures printed from the bare metal photo shoot and custom classic trucks. And I surrounded the whole display with them. So that way, they could say it's silver fiberglass, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I was, again, not around all weekend or anything. And then I was shocked to have won that award, and later on I said something and he goes, I just love the profile and the way it sits there. He goes, it's just like the look of it. And I was like, well, cool. It's a good thing I didn't open it all up and everything. Have doors open.
Especially for those custom guys, they like to see it, how it sits, and they like to see them closed up. And yeah. So that
that's
helped
a weird car because it's not really a custom and it's not really a truck. It's like, I mean, when I was building it, I never really knew what to classify it as,
we've established it obviously was not what your dad wanted.
Yeah, well, so it's not a Blazer. So the indoor guys, they have to write like a class on it. So it was always roadster pre-war roadster pickup, post-war roadster pickup.
Yeah.
Roadster pickup's how they classified it. So I'm just like, okay, I guess it's a roadster pickup. It started out as a panel truck, so I would have thought that it would have just stayed a panel truck. But I guess if you cut the top off and don't put it back on, then I guess it's a roadster pickup now.
Yeah, we were talking about judges' sheets. I remember when we were showing that Buick. That was like when the steel rubber, that universal peel and stick with all their different shapes of weather strip, and we used that in all the doors and everything. This real clean looking thing, and the judge obviously had never seen it, and he's like, "Oh man, extra bonus for having custom rubber extrusions made for the weather strip." And I'm like, that was the easiest thing we did on the car. Peel the two-sided tape off and stick it in the jams, and the judges loved that. So I guess they hadn't seen it there yet. So
So you just bought it by the case after that stuff? You just use it on everything?
Yeah, well, I bought some at Columbus. I bought some more for another car. So yeah, they make all kinds of different stuff that's not made for a car. So
Yeah.
now that you're in Utah and are you ever going to finish the 2-door wagon? Or are you going to sell that to us? Carrie's on a wagon kick.
No. So I need a wagon. The problem is I'm like a roadster guy. Like if I could, I'd have a garage full of 32 Fords, roadsters, all of them. So
Yeah.
um,
I would like a little roadster to drive around. I'd love a little fiberglass roadster to red oxide it, cruise around. But I don't. She's a sun person. She's had a roadster. I built her a Speed Star. Like when we go to the beach, she goes sits in the sun. I go find a shade. So I don't.
See, that's,
I like a roof. If I do it a roadster, I'd like a lift off top on it. But
that's why
You don't
I want.
fit in your roadster.
I could fit in a roadster.
Like
Just,
Herman Munster.
I look like Herman
As
Munster,
I'm-
but I do
as
fit.
I'm older now, I want a Dearborn 32. That way you have a top and windows with you all the time, and
Yeah,
the air
yeah.
conditioning and stuff. So I'd really
Yeah.
like a Dearborn 32 that's painted SoCal theme and like that. But that doesn't work because I have all these cars that all of us don't fit in. So the only car I even own that all of us fit in is my Nova because it seats 6. But as the kids are getting older, we're all like right next to each other. But my wagon
it's
is
a
the
Nova.
same.
Is it
What?
a Nova wagon?
No, it's just a regular 2-door post car, 67.
Because how old are the kids right now? I can't keep track on the litter that you have.
No, it's from 11 to 3. So 11,
okay.
8, 6, and 3.
Wow.
So it's my wagon is the same size as my Nova inside because the front seat in my Nova is out of my wagon. So because it had a fold down center armrest, and when we were getting ready to do the upholstery, my dad goes, "It'd be nice if you had a fold down center armrest. Then you have an armrest, or if somebody needs to sit there, you can pull it up." So we took the seat from the wagon and used it in the Nova. So the interior size is the same as my Chevelle wagon. So I'm not going to gain any space really, except for the very back.
Yeah, you should sell it.
I need like a 3-row wagon.
You
of
should
some
sell
sort.
that 2-door wagon to us.
Yeah. We don't need
I
another
think you
car
have
now.
enough projects.
I know.
I want a wagon, but it's like I want a wagon as like my daily driver.
Yeah,
See,
but
I
the ones
have
she likes a big wagon that won't fit in her garage. Like I found her one for sale, but I seen a done one this weekend, a cruiser one, a '56 4-door Buick wagon. Oh my god! But that I won't fit in our garage.
I know,
Yeah,
and then
that's
I
like-
remember how
that's like 22
bad your
feet
arms
long.
hurt when you have to stand the whole side of the car.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not. I told you after doing the Corvair, I'd never build you another car again.
Yeah.
You're not getting a shiny painted car. You're getting
I would
whatever.
be okay with that.
Yeah, you would, because then you wouldn't care about driving it.
So
To the store.
you have an 11-year-old. Is he showing any interest in hot rods?
How do you know? Is the oldest one a he or a she?
I'm pretty confident.
Carrie's smarter than you, Tim.
Oh, that's been established.
Yes.
I don't know. At one point, he wanted a Nissan Skyline R34, which I was like, well, you better get you a good job then, because that's a couple $100,000. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I'm not.
Is this a
opposed to
scooter
that
kid?
car. Yeah, scooter. Yeah, him
But
and
he's
the
a
other
scooter
one.
kid.
Yeah, he's a scooter kid. So
But
He
you
had-
were
he's
saying
actually-
that you got your first car about his age.
Yeah,
so
no, I know.
come
I know.
on, Dad, let's start
well, I
getting
got
over,
my new Buick now, so maybe he'll just take that and you can just use some other.
There you go.
But
you know,
he's actually
like,
he's pretty good
go to a car
welder.
show or steal a kid and take them. So
What's
He'll-
your Buick
he'll
you got?
61 LeSabre bubble top.
Oh, that's right.
So I
like
built that car, and then
You said new. They have a new, like
well, it's new
by
green.
new, or at least a couple years ago, a Buick wagon. Have you seen those new Buick wagons?
No, is it like the Cadillac?
Kinda, but almost
Oh.
cooler. They're really. I seen one in Nashville one day. An old guy was driving it. It's really cool.
I just can't get into these new cars anymore. I don't know. They cost way too damn much for
Oh,
anything.
It's ridiculous.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, my truck I bought first part of COVID. I got a Ram 2500 that I paid next to nothing for because they hadn't sold a truck in like 3 weeks. So they lost a ton of money on it. And now if I go to like buy a truck like that, it's like $115,000 or something stupid. I'm like, why would
Yeah.
anybody do that?
Yeah.
I'd rather have like a OBS big block crew cab truck and for $35,000 than spend $110 on some brand new thing that's I don't know. I've also figured that since COVID, everything built after COVID is just garbage. So
Agreed.
trucks,
There's a lot of stuff.
clients,
They
cars,
blame. Of course,
houses.
out where we live, COVID was a little. I don't need to get political. A little bit different than I'm sure you had to put up with where you were. But
Well, we were doing schools during all that. We were remodeling schools, so we had to wear masks when this because the school
you were still in
people were on
California
there.
then, right?
Yeah, so the school people are all on their union. I mean, I only missed like 4 hours of work during all of COVID. So there was one job I got kicked out from after we were there. We were at this job working, and they come out and they're like, "You guys got to go. Like, you can't be here." And I was like, "We're already here." He's like, "Oh, I know. You got to go now." And I was like, "But we're already here. Like, if you're going to be infected, you're already going to be infected. Like, if we leave now, you're still infected. Like, just let us stay and do the job." Like, I don't know. I don't understand any of that thought process during most of that time.
No.
I understand being fearful of what you don't know, but I don't understand the rest of it. So
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we won't talk about that.
We are on an hour and a half.
So what in the future, if you would build another car for yourself, what is? I mean, you don't have to give every detail because somebody might steal your idea if it's amazing. But is there something out there you would still like to build or be a part of, or finish that tube chassis truck, or?
I would finish it for sure. I don't know though. I'm not really the huge projects. I don't know that I love them as much as I once did. You know, they just take so long to do and everything. All that's. I mean, it's just so easy to get burned out. Like, I don't know, some of these like resto mods and some of this easier stuff, and starting with an actual body rather than trying to build it all from scratch. It's it's way less of a chance to get burned out. I don't know.
I have
always
2 or 3 big projects I want to do for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some stuff I would love to sell them to a customer, but for myself, I have 2 or 3 that I want to do, and 2 I already have, and one's already started pretty halfway. So
I've always been an oddball. When I was like probably 11 or 12, maybe in the late 90s, I remember walking into Good Guys, and under the Orion semi was that little Rambler wagon that Troy built, the little Rumbler. And since that day, I have always been. That's probably one of the reasons I build cars, is that car right there. So that's probably number 1 on my list, and then Eric's little loaded truck is probably number 2 on my list. And then Roy Pigford's Nova is probably number 3 on my list. So my list is probably totally different than most people's lists. Most people got like
there's some good ones. Yeah, those are some good ones. Yeah, that Rab Ride's. I mean, of course, Troy builds still incredible stuff, but I mean, his 60 Impala, the Peach Buick. But man, I still love a lot of stuff. I like graphics and colors, and that thing had graphics and colors. I would ruin the light color interior in a day. But that's the small block with the little John Billet motor mount and the cross ram intake, man, that thing is still bitching.
That car was for sale for not that much on Facebook Marketplace like 2 years ago, and I was like, it's like an achievable price. Like you could actually buy it. You know, it's not like way out of this world, but it's like, again, it's a 2-seater. Like you said, it's got bone colored like white interior pretty much. It's like, what do you do with it? Like, yeah, it's a cool car, but you know, I got all kinds of cool cars that you can't do anything with. So I don't really need another one like that. But I don't know, build something from. I've always liked those Ramblers. I've always liked wagons. I need a wagon of some sort probably, but I'd probably just buy something halfway done, finished, you know, drivable, and kind of make it my own. I don't know. I like roadster kind of stuff too. Like, I like building stuff that's little that you can get creative with. Like, I like all of like Henry's at Steadfast, all his little brackets and all that stuff he builds in all those frames, his stance of that stuff. So having like a 32 that's all detailed out like that would be cool to have.
He comes up with some really cool motor mounts. I like his motor mount when he goes crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that stuff's really cool. You know, when the customers allow it, or when you want to spend the time on your own to do it, I guess. But no, I don't really have a dream of building anything on my own. I really wanted a bullet nose Studebaker when I was a kid. In fact, I had one for a little while, but that's an oddball. But again, I like the Franken. So.
Oh yeah. So non-car. Where would you like to take a trip or something with the family? Where would you like to take the family?
I'd like to load up a car and do like a road trip. So growing up, we used to do that all the time with like a motorhome. We used to drive all over. I mean, I've been to all kinds of states. And then when my brother graduated high school in '98, we all drove in a Suburban, like along Route 66, up to Nashville, and then out to Gatlinburg, and then back down through Louisiana a little bit, through Texas. And that's how I knew I didn't want to move to any of those states. It's because I'd been to them before. You know, like everybody, like where I was from, everybody was moving to Boise, and Kenny Welch didn't respond to my email about working for him. So, you know, that didn't, actually, he responded to it after I moved to Utah, so that didn't really work for him, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, and then some people were moving to Texas, but Texas is, I don't like the humidity down there. I don't know. Like, I mean, here it's like 105 today, but it's zero humidity, so it's, if you just find some shade, it's, I mean, I know it's a joke, the dry heat part, but it's kind of true, really. Like, if you find a pool and it's 105 outside, you're actually almost cold being in a pool and it's that hot. But like when it's humid and you're in a pool, you're wet whether you're out of the pool or in the pool, so it doesn't matter. You're still just hot.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that drive in something old, though. You know, like I'd kind of been looking a little bit for like a '62 Chevy wagon, like a 9-passenger, one of those, or like a '54 Tin Woody. I'd like one of those. But I don't like the other. I don't like the earlier 51s, 51 ones. I like the 54s. I don't really like a 61 wagon. I like the 62 though. So, but no car. I don't own a car that I'm like, I like that car, I'm going to go get one. That's never happened in my life. Every car that I own has like found me or I've made it, one or the other.
It's like the cat distribution system. Sometimes Mother Nature just presents a cat in your life, a wild cat or something, and that's how you are. It's the car distribution system.
I got a friend here that he moved from like Southern California, and you know he's seen all my cars and everything. And I was telling him about the Buick that I was getting now, and he's like, asked me about it. I'm telling him, I was like, you know, I built it back in the day for this guy, you know, and he was a good friend of mine, and he passed away, and his buddies called me and said he left this car to you. Like, I mean, it was a project. I paid my brother to finish wiring it and do some stuff because my brother's a really good mechanic. And he looks at me and he goes, I like all of your cars have some outrageous story. And I was like, well, almost all of them I've owned for over 20 years, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, over that time, you get all these different stories. He's like, well, one you're like on the cover of a magazine with, and then, you know, this one has like all these other stories to it, and that one you've owned forever. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I like
that's the weirdest part after talking to you, that you still have all these cars basically in your life that you've never really got rid of. When you say, when you're over something, it's like, I want to quit this job today. And you haven't ever got mad at a car and it's like, I'm going to sell this thing today. The best offer by 5 o'clock and it's going away.
Yeah. He has the same cars and the same wife.
Yeah,
that's two things that he's keeping forever. Also,
yeah, if once you make it past that 20-year mark with me, then I guess it's forever. So
we both married women that have low standards. Are you to the point in your life, if your wife gets mad at you and she looks at you, allegedly, I may have heard this, and they just say, I'm too old to start over?
No.
I've heard that in my life.
I tell mine she's stuck, though, because she got 4 little kids, and, you know, it's going to be hard for her to find somebody else after that. So
we stay together because
I'll probably be fine. She'll probably be able to find somebody.
We would fight over the cats.
Yeah.
I just told her if I die, don't find some douchebag to raise the kids the rest of their life. So.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we sign off here?
No, I don't think so. No.
See, everybody does this. Robbie has sent in questions when Carrie interviewed me, and I'm like, dude, we got to get you on here. And he goes, well, we haven't really been letting people know who we're talking to, just because some people cancel on us at the last minute and stuff like that. So yeah, we had questions because we knew when we were going to interview her, she was going to interview me.
Questions.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you were like, nobody wants to hear my story. I'm not going to be able to talk for 20 minutes, and here we are over an hour and a half into it. So,
My only thing would be that it's totally unrelated to cars, but kind of related to cars, is that if you have something on your body that you don't feel is right, maybe go to the doctor a little sooner than later. So I'm one that's bad about going to the doctor. I don't really think that they know much of anything, so I wait to the very, very end, and that has caused me to lose part of my finger now. That chances are I would have lost it anyways, but had I gone sooner, maybe I would still have it. So
what was the matter with your finger?
So I had, lost that part of that one. I had a giant blister here. Hey, you guys saw it at SEMA this year, didn't you?
Yeah,
It was on there. Yeah, I was trying to rub it all over you guys. So
see, that's how good of friends we are. You can walk up and say, "Hey, you want to see this blister on my body? Does this look infected?"
Infection. Does it look bad?
In my defense, I didn't know it was cancer at the time, so I probably wouldn't have done that. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's contagious like that. So I had a giant blister, and this started like in May, because I remember. So my oldest will come to the shop every now and then, and we'll do some welding. So he's like an okay MIG welder. I mean, almost anybody can MIG weld if you just know how to pull a trigger. So that's kind of, and he's done a little bit of TIG welding. So he was here just before Mother's Day, and I remember I had this thing on my finger, and I couldn't pop it. I was trying to like pop it all the time because it just looked like a blister, which I get those all the time. From work. I go home with stuff, and my kids be like, "What's that? Where'd you get that?" I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't even notice it till right now.
Yeah, I bleed every day in the shop. Yeah.
I remember while he was welding, I took a drill bit and I sprayed it with brake cleaner and I put it in a drill, and I was going to drill the hole and pop this blister. Ooh. And like as I'm drilling it, it's like it's not popping, like it's pushing in. It's like super hard. And I was like, oh, that's weird. All right, we'll just wait and see what happens. It'll come off eventually.
That's weird, because normally when I drill something on my body, it reacts differently.
But I didn't do that. So, like a lot of times you get like a metal sliver or something, and then it blisters up and it comes out. Like that's what I honestly thought it was. So then we're back in Napa like in June or July, and my dad's a diabetic, so he's got the little like Lancet poker things, to test his blood sugars. So I was like, oh, I'll borrow that. That'll pop that thing. And I pop it, well, it's just blood. There's nothing white coming out, but you can see it. It's all white. I was like, all right, that's weird. So my wife's like, you need to get an appointment, get that seen about. I was like, all right. But I had never I had healthcare here, but I didn't have like a doctor. I hadn't established care yet. So it took a while. And I work 410, so I try to do everything on Fridays, which around here, like everybody works 410, so there's hardly anybody out on Fridays. There's like Fridays aren't like a regular day around town in most places. So it took like a couple months. And I go to the doctor and I show him the thing. And he goes, oh, it looks like you got like a metal sliver or something in there, and it's going to blister, like your body built up a thing. I was like, see, I knew what it was. I know my body. And then he goes, oh, let me send you to a hand specialist, and then he can look at it. For you, take it out or whatever, clean it up. Okay, all right. So the hand guy was booked up a couple months now. So they gave me a sports medicine guy in the meantime, which he's kind of like, I don't know what that is, dude. He's like, I'm okay with like carpal tunnel when it comes to hands, but not that thing. And I was like, all right, that's fine. He goes, I'll take like a video of it and I'll show it to the doctor and see what he says. I was all right. Well, then now come December. That was around Halloween, so the end of October, and then maybe must have been the beginning of December. It actually like busted open, so it was like oozing some kind of weird stuff out of it, and then I get on my next finger like clear liquid. So I call and I was telling them, I was like, this thing's like busted open now, and she goes, okay, yeah, we'll schedule you in tomorrow. So I had to go in, get put out and everything. And the doctor, he's a hand doctor, so that's all he does is hands. He's like in his 60s. He'd been a doctor in the Army for 12 years. So I assume he'd seen mostly everything. Well, he's like, I've never seen anything like this before. Okay. So then when they pull it out or cut it open or whatever, I'm out and stuff. And he called my wife and he's like, well, we took it out. He's like, I have no idea what that thing is. He says we'd send it off to have it, send it off to pathology to have a report done, see what it is and stuff. And he's like, I don't know what that is. I've never seen that in my life. So I'm like, okay, well, this is great, So Again, I never really thought anything of it. And I have my follow-up appointment. And a couple of days before the follow-up appointment, the pathology report had come in. And it's got all these doctor words on there. I don't know what a single one of them means, or anything. And I'm smart enough, as the 14th in my class, not to go Google all those words.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got an appointment in a couple of days. They'll tell me what it is. So I'm there, and the lady's taking out the stitches, and the doctor's assistant comes in, and he goes, oh, he's like, that's healed up really nice. He goes, we should probably just cut that whole part of your finger off. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, cut it all off right there at the knuckle. And I was like, okay, you just said it looked okay. He's like, well, did you get your pathology report? And I go, yeah. He goes, so you know what you have? I was like, nope. And he goes, well, you got, see if I can even say this. You got digital papillary adenocarcinoma. And I was like, I got what? And he goes, digital papillary adenocarcinoma. And I was like, I still have no idea what that is. And he goes, well, there's like a, shoot, I forget all these doctor terms. I'm not very good at this. It'll masticize or whatever. So it'll grow back and it'll transfer through your body. And so now he's using these two different M words with masticize and then some other M word, which I don't remember what it was. And then carcinoma and all this. Never once uses the word cancer at all. Never. So I'm like, okay, and then he's like, well, let me see if the doctor's in. And so he'll come and look, and he's looking, and he goes, well, we could make it a sharp point. He goes, the problem is I didn't get it all out. It's like in the bone. So he's like, I have to take some of the bone out. But he says, I'm not the good person for that. Like he goes, I can cut your finger off, but he says you need to go to a facility that can handle nuclear medicine because they need to inject nuclear medicine up your lymph nodes. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, there's a doctor up north, Salt Lake City. So my cancer doctor is 4 hours up north one way. So I got to drive back and forth. Whenever I have to go to the doctor, it's a day. It's a day to go there and back. So he goes, she's going to call you. She has a little bit of experience with what you have. And she can do the nuclear medicine and she can do the amputation part. And I was like, I'm like, I don't even know what to think really. Like I go sit in the car and I'm trying to Google whatever he said, which I got the first part with digital, and then I got PAP, and luckily for Google it pops up. I was like, oh yeah, that's what he's talking about, and I click on it and it's just cancer. And I was like, okay, all right. So I have cancer that comes back and travels and all this stuff, and it's a 0.08 in a million chance of even getting it. So I'm like, okay, now I'm like, I don't even know really what to think, what to do, or anything. And then so she calls a little bit later, and then this is a week before Christmas. I find out all this stuff, and then we're going back to Napa right after Christmas for a little bit, and that's the Buick owner. He had called me just out of the blue when I was in Napa just after Christmas, and he goes, hey, I'm gonna die the next 3 weeks. I've got this condition where I can't process sodium. And I was like, well, Rick, I got cancer in my finger and they got to cut it off. And he's just I said, I'll come and see you. He's like, you don't have to drive from Utah. And I was like, no, I'm in Napa right now. He's like, oh, okay, all right, come on out and see me then. So I went over there and hung out. We had our sob stories together. So that was the last time I saw him before he passed. But so he had all this stuff. I had all this stuff, but all of mine is unknowns, So then we go meet with this doctor, and she's, again, in her 60s. She's seen it about, I don't know, she said a few times in her career. So I don't know how many that is. If that's 3 or 2. She says, I'm the youngest one on record of ever having it, but she assumes there's probably some people that have had it taken out and then they just scrap it. They don't send it out for a pathology report. Probably never really know it, one or the other. But I was only 39 at the time, so I wasn't even 40 yet. So she goes, I'm going to cut it off and I'm going to inject nuclear medicine up your lymph nodes into your elbow and your armpit. And then I have a scanner that'll show me which lymph nodes have the nuclear medicine in them. And then I have to cut those out, cut them out and have them tested. So I was like, all right. So I lost my finger and 3 lymph nodes from my armpit, which that one hurt pretty good for a little while there. That was almost worse than the finger. So luckily it all came back negative right now. So I just have to drive up there twice a year to get a checkup, which is actually next month now. So I get my 4 hours there, 4 hours back. I told my wife I'm going to take my Buick up there, and she's like, "No, you're not." I was like, "I don't know how to at least drive something fun now." Like last time I drove up there, it was like February. It was snowing the whole way up there. So yes, so that's my recommendation, is to not be an idiot like me. And I know like a lot of the rest of us are like that. Don't go to doctors, because it is good every now and then.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
a
think you have to
practice,
be a hypochondriac either. You don't want to go for every little thing you get on your body, but you probably should go if something's on your body and you can't drill it with a drill. You should probably go to the doctor.
Good advice.
Good advice.
Good advice. Next time Tim comes home and he's got a problem with, I'm gonna say, well, can you drill it?
Yeah.
Like your heart?
Or you send a picture to me and I'll email it up to my cancer doctor and she'll tell me whether it's.
There you go.
She'll be like, "Oh, you got tattoos now, huh?"
All right, we better wrap this up.
Okay, well, we appreciate
Yep.
Robbie Azevedo being on the Strange Motion Way podcast.
So what are your social handles?
I apologize. I apologize in advance if nobody listens and it's your last podcast.
No, you're good. You're good.
Well, nobody watches it. I don't know why on YouTube. They don't watch the videos. We can't get hardly anybody but Spotify and
Hey,
online
you know,
people listen to Apple, and Spotify's good.
If I could get my wife on, you probably get somebody to watch the video part of it.
There you go.
Yeah?
Yeah,
That's
there
true.
you go. Send some video.
You should probably do the video stuff with the wives, and then this stuff with just the audio recordings. Really.
Do you want me to post some of the videos that she sends me?
Okay, enough. I'm getting hungry.
Hey,
Time
I
to
get
go.
that same eye roll. I get that same eye roll all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, give her a hug for us.
Yep.
Jamie's awesome.
Yep.
And
Yep.
thanks
Good
again,
talking
man.
to you guys.
We'll see
All
ya.
right, take care. Bye.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by Royal Purple Synthetic Oils.
Royal Purple premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance in all conditions and provide cleaner operation, better mileage, and decreased oil change frequency. That means less oil changes. With products available for your gasoline and diesel engines, Royal Purple is the obvious choice for your performance needs. Drive with Royal Purple, the synthetic expert.